There, we're back. We froze up. They must have heard us talking and decided that they need to shut us down there. So we're back, though.
We choked just like the Conservatives. Or is that
There
too
you
too
go.
soon?
Too
Too
soon.
soon, too
Yeah,
sensitive
probably
for some
maybe
people.
wait for that. Maybe wait for the meme section for that.
Yeah, I can't actually recall what we were
Oh,
talking
we were
about. I think it was
talking.
Alberta,
We were
wasn't
just
it?
talking about Daniel Smith, but we were ready to move on past Daniel Smith. We were just going to talk about Fuhr's riding and Tracy Gray's riding. That is still. Yeah, I think there's one ballot box, and there might be some mail-in votes to come as well.
Yeah, once again, Kelowna is a battlefield. Very divided, isn't it, that riding, both provincially and federally.
It came down to 30 votes with Christina Lowen and Loyal Wooldridge.
Yeah. I mean, you can see why. The city, it's one of the fastest growing cities in Canada and has been for quite a while now. And lots of people are coming from away, as they say in the Maritimes, and lots of people are coming from urban areas of Alberta, urban areas in BC, like the Lower Mainland, and then also Ontario, and they're coming, and they a lot of the times they're prime Liberal voters, aren't they? But then there's quite a lot of retirees as well in Kelowna, and they've broken very heavily for the Liberals, haven't they? And
Yeah.
then on top of that, you have this old sort of tradition, I suppose you would call it, of Western conservatism that exists in Kelowna. It's like sort of it's a weird place, isn't it? It's like a microcosm of lots of different demographics.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. We lost a lot of the people that were watching for sure, but maybe they'll jump back in. BCER. This is. I guess we can focus our attention back to British Columbia here because this ongoing story that's been hiding outside of the news cycle because of all the attention that's been put on the national election. But here we are. The closing for the second time in 3 days. That's the ER of Lillooet.
This one has just been absolutely battered, hasn't it? This has been the worst affected that so far this year. And
Yeah.
then you've had lots of closures at 100 Mile House as well. So, I mean, but it is true. I mean, this is just one little, this is just one sort of minor symptom, I suppose, that we're seeing all across Canada and in BC, um, of a kind of deterioration in living standards, which is why so many people presumed that the incumbent federal government would be rejected.
Yeah, you would have thought with what if you've been driving the car for 10 years that you wouldn't get the steering wheel for the next 4 years, but apparently,
Well,
uh,
it's happened twice. It's happened twice, hasn't it?
well,
David Eby and
yeah,
now the Liberals. That the two teams or the two drivers, as you you might say with your metaphor, who've been driving the truck for the last number of years, 10 years in the case of the federal government.
yeah.
Apparently, it seems like for enough people, things are good enough. The status quo is good enough, apparently, for a majority of or a plurality of the electorate.
The Canadian hockey player will not be charged after the death of an opponent. That happened back in 2023 after his neck was cut in the game between the Nottingham Panthers and the Sheffield Steelers.
Yeah, I mean that was an absolutely astonishing incident, wasn't it? It was completely surreal. There's a video that was doing the rounds of it, and then obviously in the aftermath, there was all this chatter about making it so people had to wear the neck guards. But
Yeah.
I don't really know if that's has that actually been followed. Pretty sure there's some people that still don't wear those guards.
Yeah, and then that judge rules that the man who killed the kids at the daycare not criminally responsible, and that's that man who drove a bus into a daycare in Quebec and killed two children, not criminally responsible. And that was a
And
4 year.
he's the guy that grew up in Cambodia under the repressive regime, the Rouge regime, I believe. And he said that, or a psychiatrist came and said that his actions,
Change that image there.
he was trying to like clear away his bad memories or something like that.
Yeah, so a 4-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl died in that tragic incident. There you go.
Very, very depressing, isn't it? That's near, well, I think it's kind of in Montreal area.
Yeah, let's move on to the stock market and see what reaction, if any, going on with the markets. Markets, a little bit. I think just more like the indexes there. I was just checking right now. Yeah, they're up marginally right now, up about 262 points on the indexes. And our friend gold, definitely chopping in that range, which we expect to do for a bit here. Chop, chop, chop. I mean, Canada's election is not enough to swing any kind of like movement in the U.S. markets and or the gold market, because again, Canada doesn't even have any gold reserves. So gold is not going to get affected by what happens here in Canada for sure, unless there's something super significant that happens. But
I mean, something to do with the oil could theoretically affect the oil futures market,
yeah,
I imagine, if there was something insane, but there hasn't really been anything that extreme, has there?
Canada's a small player in the overall world markets for sure. Bitcoin, again, we said this for a while now. It's actually at 95 as we speak, 95 to 93. Bitcoin looking like it wants to challenge that previous high as it's climbing up the charts. And we've said that for a while now, that it looked like it found its bottom for now anyway. And then the Canadian dollar, that's the one that we were kind of more so interested in. And not much reaction, a little bit off this morning, not much reaction. But a lot of people thinking without the conservative win would have been very good for the Canadian dollar. Now it's going to remain to be seen whether he gets a majority or a minority. That'll be tougher on the dollar, especially if like that tough talk that you just said that with Trump there. I don't know how that's going to bode well for Canada. And again, Canadian dollar up mainly on U.S. dollar weakness, not on Canadian dollar strength. And then in our tech section, Grok about to release 3.5. And it's going to be called Super Grok. There you go, Super Grok. Who doesn't
They
need
literally only just released three, didn't they? They're flying with these releases.
Yeah, so the thing is that the AI is actually helping build itself now. So the acceleration of technology is something that is going to blow people away, like absolutely just stun people in the next little while. It will be stunning for sure. It will
Well,
be.
that's the basic idea behind the singularity, isn't it? That we invent technology that can invent better technology than we could invent ourselves, and then
Yeah.
all hell breaks loose.
All something breaks loose in our auto sector, auto EV sector. Now, because Canada's trying to hang on to its automobile sector. Here's Dan McTeague, former Liberal MP, taking a video here of the bright drops there. Let's play that clip here. And this is Dan McTeague driving by these fields of bright drop vehicles, GM vans that not selling, and that's when they closed down the plant there for a bit and said they wouldn't open it back until the fall, and then that reduction because the bright drop EV van is not selling, and then the Liberals did kind of put that out as it was Donald Trump's tariffs, but GM and had confirmed that it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the vehicles not selling.
Which is why they want to try and force Canada Post to buy them all, don't they? But unfortunately, they don't have any money, so that might not work.
Well, you've got money, right?
That's news to me, mate.
You've got money, they're just taking it from you. There you go. You'll be buying a bright drop van. You won't get to drive it, but you'll be paying for it. How's that?
Well, that would be the patriotic thing to do, wouldn't it? If you actually believe in Canada, you're going to buy a bright drop van right now.
Not for yourself, but for Canada Post.
Yeah. You got to be loyal to Canada Post, haven't you?
There you go. Trump signs executive order to provide relief for auto sector. There you go.
But as usual with those ridiculous people in the White House, there's no information. It's just the usual guff from the banana republic that has
I,
emerged to our south.
I think the auto sector is going to be something to really watch, and I sincerely doubt if the Carney Liberals will dump the EV mandate. I really don't think they will, and that will be the demise of the Canadian auto market.
Then there'll be the whole thing will look like bright drops.
Yeah,
It'll be
and then
bright
you can
drop world.
and you can buy a Bright Drop for the Canada Post, and that'll be the auto market. They'll be called an ironic or oxymoronic name, the Bright Drop. There you go. And then we're on to our meme section to finish off the day here. There you go. And this is we got a little clip here. With the grid going down in Europe there, they got Spanish EV drivers right now.
That's a very interesting story, by the way. There's no official explanation yet for why this happened, but the Spanish electricity grid is very reliant on solar, and there's an assumption, and it's very very much electrified, and they've gone all in on renewables. There are theories from people that know their onions that it was to do with the sort of the solar overload, and that's why they spent 24 hours without power in Spain and parts of Portugal. So yeah, I mean maybe that's the renewable future. Maybe we can experience that here in Canada.
So all you gotta do is
We
cut a
might
hole in
get
your
that
floor.
gift.
You can cut a hole in the floorboards, and then you can do the old Flintstone-mobile. I used to watch the Flintstones every day before I went to work at the mill. When I was like 16, 17, 18, that would be my pre work ritual was watch the Flintstones, and I knew when the Flintstones was over, it was time to go to work. Meet the Flintstones.
Could you do a really good impression of Fred Flintstone
Yabba
after
dabba
that?
doo.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but I know. No. Yabba dabba doo. Do you know all the characters in the Flintstones? Wilma and Betty. That's the two wives, and there's Barney and Fred and
Fred,
Dino.
I mean Betty and
Dino.
Fred, really. That's about the extent of my knowledge.
Dino, the dinosaur, and then Bam Bam and Pebbles were later additions to the show, and they were the kids. And then the cat's name I don't remember. Fangosaurus, I can't remember. I can't remember the cat's name. But anyway, Trump's skin returns to normal human color after RFK bans artificial dyes.
I mean,
Go.
it's an interesting point that they made there, which is like, what would he actually look like if he wasn't so interested in makeup and other cosmetics?
It looks like he's got a blue tinge there. He might be trying out for the Blue Man Group in Las Vegas there. I can't believe that show's still going, and I was in Vegas just in January there. That show is still going on.
It was all the rage in 2002 or something like that, wasn't it?
I'll be going to San Francisco here in the beginning of May here for a conference, and I know you're not supposed to go to the United States, but I'm going there for a conference, and it'll be interesting to see. I'll get firsthand knowledge of what San Francisco looks like. I've been there. Used to love going to San Francisco. It's just such a beautiful.
I would advise you to wear a stab-proof vest.
Yeah, that's what I hear. So things could, yeah. There's the interesting, and then this has got to be the cringe of the evening last night, or the cringe of the election. We're gonna play this clip here for you. I guess they're doing the new dance raging across Canada.
That's I think I might have to go to
Dance lessons?
accident and emergency. I might have to go to ER after that. I'm experiencing something in my chest. That was agony. To be honest, that press his acceptance speech was extraordinarily painful for me to watch. Just purely in cringe terms, nothing at all to do with the politics. The
I
cringe was absolutely off the
I
charts.
I can't believe that like Polyev was very gracious and congratulating him. I can't believe in his acceptance speech that he actually took the time to take a shot at Polyev instead of like saying, congratulating him. I mean that is not the Canadian way for sure. Do you know what I mean? Like that seemed
It's also
odd,
not
right?
very smart because the country is on a knife edge.
Uh,
He is not the great leader that the great beloved leader that he seems to think he is. Most Canadians didn't vote for him.
I,
That's the reality of the situation.
what I found really kind of why I thought this belonged in the meme section was when you go to weddings, and I don't know how many weddings you've been to, but when they play that chicken dance, this actually takes that chicken dance to a new level. That's elbows up, especially when Diana Fox there, Carney. Do you want to see it again one more
Yeah.
time? You got to play it one more time because
Oh God. I don't think I can handle it.
I think it's going to rage across Canada. Donald Trump has the dance, right? How's his go like this? Something like that? That's the Donald Trump dance, right?
Yeah, he kind of
Think
like punches his arms out a bit, doesn't he?
yeah, I think this thing is going to take over from the Trump dance. Like, watch this. Like, nobody else is doing it. It's just the two. Well, there's one person in the background. Maybe a couple of people are doing it, but it's not like it hasn't
Look at
caught on.
Diana's natural rhythm there.
Yeah, she's killing it.
And then you can see the little like Secret Service agent there with his little ominous earpiece, the
Yeah.
RCMP bodyguard.
He wants to get into it, right?
Oh, it's agony.
Uh,
I think that person next to him. No, no, maybe not. Yeah, there were a few moments during that his acceptance speech or his, victory speech or whatever you want to call it, where he kept talking about humility, but there is no humility from Mark Carney. The whole point of Mark Carney is that he presents himself as a kind of demigod that's chosen to come down to earth and spend a few minutes helping the sort of hopeless peasants on the ground. Like, that's kind of his whole shtick. But then he starts talking about humility. It's that just sort of made me laugh, I have to admit.
yeah. So for all the people that are, like sad, like they lost Game 7 in overtime, um, you can play that clip over and over and over again. I don't know if that'll help you or
There's
not.
going to be a lot of it's going to change. Things are going to change really quickly. This is going to be if as it looks like he's not going to win a majority. It looks like the Liberals are going to, but obviously it could still happen. We don't know. But I mean, they're sort of trending towards minority. If that happens, then I don't know. He's going to have to rely on other parties to pass any bill.
And
That's
I
not going to
think,
be a very sort of effective government, I wouldn't imagine.
in all honesty, there is going to be a unity crisis here in Canada, and I think even Blanchette is pushing for it because that he can use that as an excuse to have his own kind of unity crisis there in Quebec.
But there's also, yeah, that's true. There's a unit crisis that the provinces are pulling. Some provinces are trying to pull away, but then there's a broader kind of disintegration and a loss of faith in a lot of the Canadian population. Lots of people are losing faith in Canadian institutions. They're
Mm.
losing faith in, most importantly, probably, they're losing faith in, like as Pierre Poilievre said, the Canadian dream or the Canadian promise. People are losing faith in this idea that you can have a normal life if you obey the rules and you kind of subscribe to the what you're supposed to do. People are losing faith, and they're losing faith in obviously the CBC, the RCMP, the courts,
I think
everything.
I think
It's a real crisis that we're in.
I think the CBC needs to find somebody to do an internal reflection of where they're at. Because I think, if you listen to the Rosemary Bartons, they believe that they're completely pluralists and they've lost their way. I mean, they've lost the trust of, half the country. And if they don't want to take any stock in that, I mean, they're taking money from everybody. They're taking money from every Canadian. They're not taking money just from people that support the Liberals. They're taking money from everybody, and they're not representing the voice of Canada.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even their claims to be represented in the whole of Canada are made in a sort of half-hearted way now. I think even they know the reality deep down. they know the truth. But you have to be aware, don't you? You have to be very cautious about overreach, and that's, or hubris. They really must be careful. Not just the Liberals, but the people that the Liberals represent. And that means, public workers and people in cities like Toronto and all the rest of it. They need to be careful because I think maybe they've taken the strength of the Canadian institutions for granted, and they seem to think that they're going to last forever. But that's not true. There's not much love for them, and
Yeah.
that's why it's the older generations who've backed the Liberals and backed the status quo. Is because they've got most of their life experience was from a time when those institutions were a lot stronger, and I feel like maybe a lot of them take it for granted.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, we're in for a very tumultuous few years at the
you would
least.
you would think CBC's main thing would be to fight for independent and a free media, and they couldn't be further from the truth. So there you go.
Yeah, because that they seem to be quite brittle, don't they? They have quite sort of fragile egos. I think they don't like to be targeted and criticized and exposed, which is never ever a good sign.
There you go. That's our show for today. Sorry about the chunk in the middle there where we lost half of you with a bit of clunkiness. Again, if we had just a sliver of the CBC budget, that would be, you know, and but I don't think they're into sharing, are they?
No, definitely not. They
How about
share the
this?
bonuses around the
Yeah.
executives.
Show you care and share with independent media outlets, CBC. Let's see it. Let's see it. I dare you. How's that? That's our show for today. Renee Merrifield's going to be in later today. We're doing our Beyond the Ballot. Lots to talk about. We can probably turn some of our attention after we talk about this election back to British Columbia politics as well to see, because David Eby's been operating in the shadows here with, like what's going on in the hospitals here in Lillooet and many other rural hospitals with having to close their ER departments. And I think we need to shine a flashlight on that too. But we'll be following the story of what goes on with Alberta because that will play out. And then Blanchette obviously becoming more and more vocal. And the only good thing in all this, you won't be hearing a lot from Jagmeet Singh. So there you go. That's our show for this morning. And we're back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We do thank you for watching NowMedia.
We don't just report the news, we live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.